Thank you. So for our next talk, and again sharing about my own history and experience, when I was a researcher, I was trying to do consulting. When I was a consultant, I was trying to do research. I think I'm a bit nostalgic. And if there is a company, a consulting company that is doing the bridge very well between those two worlds, it's Yukon Seed and Restoration. I think it's a very good example of a First Nation-owned company that is doing an amazing work trying to bridge those two worlds for better revegetation practices. Christina Gardner is the general manager of Yukon Seed and Restoration. She's a registered professional forester and project management professional with over 20 years of experience. Christina brings her skills in forestry to understanding ecology of disturbed sites, planning and implementing revegetation projects in the Yukon, including revegetation planning and trials at the Casino, Kino, and Mount Nansen mine sites. Christina is dedicated to using teamwork and local knowledge to empower informed planning and decision-making to remediate sites and use natural resources sustainability while remaining connected to community and to the environment. Welcome, Christina. It is on.
All right. And this is just going to slide right up. Oh, no, there we go. Good morning. You've managed to make it past the banquet and you are here and we've done a lot of science and it's been a really, really exciting morning. My imagination always takes me places when I hear about cryopurification. It takes me into like fantasy land spaces and it's tons of fun. We're going to talk a bit more about plants, and as Guillaume has mentioned, I'm the general manager for Yukon Seed and Restoration. It's important to note that we're a partnership between the First Nation of Na-Xanadu Development Corporation and Corgeo, and that helps us to do work in a good way. So what I'm here to talk to you about is some opportunities in mine site restoration, and bridging from what Julia had to say about going from the lab scale to the operational scale. That's what we're hoping to talk to you about. Oh, I should have practiced with this machine. Okay, so what I'm going to talk to you about is biocrust restoration and bioengineering for erosion control. If you don't know what those things are, that's okay. I'm about to tell you, so just get ready. So biocrusts are things in the landscape that are non-vascular plants. You probably walk over them every day when you go hiking or walking in the trails. They can vary from like a super thin crust over soil or sandy soils, or they mix with lichens and mosses and cyanobacteria to create this non-vascular structure that you can see behind me. They have a really, really important ecological role and can either form the beginning of ecological succession to vascular plants like trees and shrubs you'd imagine as normal plants, or they can just stay there and that would be the peak of your ecological trajectory. So here's a closer picture of biocrusts. This is a picture, you can see the lichen and the mosses together. Cyanobacteria are too small to see, so they're not in this slide. Well, they are, but you can't see them. And some of the stuff that we can do with biocrusts are stabilized tailings or sandy sites, but we can also apply them in really harsh places where you would never get a vascular plant to grow, like in alpine conditions, where they would actually form the climax community. They form super important contributions to habitats, so especially for caribou, which we all love. So that's an important piece of consideration. So we were lucky enough to work with the folks at Casino and Selkirk First Nation with this pilot study of biocrust implementation. And essentially what you do is you take lichens and mosses together and you make a smoothie. And you pour that out into spots on the landscape, and you're creating these islands. So you can see behind me, I'm not about to try to this pointer crazy thing. You can see behind me, it's all rocky, right? You would never get a vascular plant to grow here. I mean, you can, I've done it, but it's brutal and you don't want to. But what you can do is you can create biocrusts. What we're experimenting with is how best to protect them while they establish, because biocrusts are really slow growing. Think about the time scale of a lichen growing, it's long. And you have to protect them while that happens, otherwise they just kind of get blown away. So the burlap is what we have put over our islands of biocrust material here at Casino, and what we're hoping is when we go look at them again, they'll be established and we'll be able to show that this is operationally feasible. So what this means for you as a miner is that you probably have spots where you're like, I have a lot of rocks here, or oh man, it's really alpine up here, or I have tailings, and you're like, well, how the heck am I going to revegetate these places? And what we can tell you is that it's doable, and we can do that by establishing biocrust communities on your mine sites and either kickstart ecological succession or generate a climax community that would be actually qualified as reclamation. You did it, hooray! So next steps for this are partnering with more mining companies. So like, think about that, guys, we're ready. And establishing this over more areas. You can see the difference between this site and the one before. The other one was all rocks. This one has some soil. There's a lot of different places where you can apply biocrust that is very effective. So pivoting, we're going to go back to vascular plants, the ones that you think about as plants, the ones that are along this riverside if you went walking in the snow, and the concept of bioengineering. So all of you engineers in the room, just calm down. We're doing engineering with plants, and it's going to be great. So you can do bioengineering by live staking willow and balsam poplar species. And the beauty of them is that you can cut down a live plant and cut it into pieces and put it back in the ground and it'll grow. It's like a rooted cutting, like if anybody are gardeners, it's like that. And the beauty of them is you can bundle those live stakes into, well, bundles and put them either across or vertical in your landscape, and they can function as either living fences or pole drains. And what that does is direct water to be going where you want it to go and capture sediment and erosion. So it's really incredible. What you can see in this picture is the cocoa matting and sediment fences in this hillside. What you can't see is the buried fascine material, so the bundles of live stakes, but they're there. There's a pole drain in the very front of this picture, and then behind each one of those sediment control structures is another fascine. And I'll show you a picture of this, as we go forward in the presentation. But one more thing to notice, it's a bit hard to see, unfortunately, with the way the color is on the slide, but at the very top of this, you can see maybe where there's a little bit of pink, there's plants at the top of this eroded slope. That's the head wall, and I'm going to tell you about the head wall in a minute or two. So how did we get working on this project? We were lucky to be able to pivot some existing pre-2 billion trees funding to this area at the request of the First Nation of Nacho Dun, because they came to us and said, look, we're really worried about erosion in this area. This slope got burned, and you can see in the background maybe it's an area of fire in this, like it's the fire belt of the Yukon. And so the fire melted the permafrost. The permafrost is slumping, and that's causing erosion into the creek. And sadly enough, the creek is already under a lot of pressure because this is on the road to a very famous mine site that we talk about a lot. Actually, we don't talk about it a lot, but it's the disaster site, the elephant in the room. So it's a big deal to try to stabilize these slopes because they're already under such pressure. And the beauty is that we can actually do that with plants. So here's an image. The colors totally don't work, so I maybe won't belabor this, but there's different colors. If you want the presentation, I'll show you, where we've placed the bundled stakes in fascine structures across the landscape, like in that first picture, where they will produce a living fence and capture sediment as it's coming down the hill. And then there's vertical structures. They're just vaguely blue in this image, and those are the pole drains where you bundle the stakes again, but you place them vertical, and what that does is it makes the water go where you want it to go. And that means it's not going everywhere, which means your erosion is controlled and it's alive. So it's filtering water, but it's also helping to grow plants. It's the best. There's some other bars across the landscape. Further up the hill, they're brown in the imagery, and those are coarse woody debris structures. This is maybe a little bit less applicable to mining because by the time you go to a mine site, the coarse woody debris is long gone. But if you're lucky enough to have some, it's an incredible tool. It's natural, it's there, Mother Nature just left it. In this case, it burned, so it's just standing there. And if you place it on the ground across the landscape, it captures sediment, slows the movement of soil, and allows the natural seed rain to establish vegetation without any other intervention. So it's like super cool, and also very cheap. which we love. One more thing, though, to look at in this slide is the little squiggly line across the very top. That's the head wall that I mentioned, and that's just important because of the next slide. So stabilizing the head wall is the most important part of these erosion control structures because these are the places that are still actively thawing. So the permafrost is actively melting. The plants are trying to root into this like thawing, slumpy, muddy material, and what happens is they kind of like skate down the hill in these weird clumps. It's like icebergs, except on land. It's very cool. But because they're moving too quickly, the roots can't establish and the plants just keep eroding. So stabilizing the head wall of your eroding area is super important because then you can sort of stop the source, as it were, stabilize the rest, and then you've solved your problem. So what we did up here is we bundled our fascine stakes behind wattle fences, and so we've termed them washines, which is a name we made up just for us, and planted plants above it so that we are stabilizing the slope and hopefully going to keep the head wall from sort of eating its way up like a receding hairline up the hill. So opportunities for mining, you probably have frozen soils. You live in the Yukon, they're everywhere. And you may have places that are eroding. I can think of several places that look like they could use some erosion control support in some of the presentations I've seen to date, and places that I've been, right? You've got like some place and you're like, this is gonna be great, but instead it's just thawing and making a giant muddy mess. So we can help you. And so for all those engineers in the room that love riprap, this is an alternative you could use, and it grows plants. So you're on the way to your restoration goals. You've created plants on the landscape. They're green, it's wonderful, and they're actually really effective. So next steps for YSR, we are planning to grow live stakes into rooted cuttings so that we can plant them not year round, let's face it, but further into the summer, because the thing about live staking is you have to harvest the plants when they're dormant, and then you have to stake them before it's like mid-summer because they really, really don't work, just like in your greenhouse. But if you make them into a plug, then we could have plants for you all summer long, which would just increase all of our operational ability. And I didn't make a conclusion slide, and look at that, I caught us up. So we at YSR are here. We're happy to work with anyone. We're super thankful to work with our Indigenous partners, especially the First Nation of Na-Cho-Nyäk-Dun. And I meant to do a land acknowledgement, so I'm gonna do it late. I'm just really grateful this morning, and I hope we're all grateful that we are here in this incredible traditional territory, and where we get to work, live, and play in all of our, going back to our workplaces and our own traditional territories. This is a great place, and we're just so thankful. So I'm gonna end on a tone of gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you very much. No, you can keep it. You like it this way. Questions for Christina? Over there.
Thank you. That was such a great presentation. I am an engineer, and I love riprap. You're right. So, and the nice thing about riprap is you can spec it because of threshold velocities for certain rocks. So, have you sort of investigated, like, are there certain thresholds that this can withstand, or are there things you can beef it up to like meet certain thresholds?
Nope.
Okay. Opportunity.
I mean, yeah, not yet. Like, right,
Yeah.
we're working on slopes. We're stabilizing them. There's probably studies about this, but I don't have that handily available to you. That's the thing about engineering versus plants. You never know what plants can do, but engineers are very into the numbers. So,
Yeah, that's great. Well, hopefully we can try it out somewhere.
yes.
Question over there.
Christina, Masicho, for your presentation. That was amazing. Question for you is, in terms of industry response rate, what has been the industry reach out to you in terms of similar activities to be done before they start even thinking about mining?
YSR is lucky to have a lot of really strong industrial partners and friends and clients. So we do a variety of work for different industrial clients, some of them working with sort of leading edge technology like I've presented this morning, but a lot of other stuff as far as seed collection, banking, restoration prescriptions. I mean, this could be a whole advertisement for how YSR works, but I guess suffice it to say that we love our clients and we always want more Yukon clients. So if you don't already work with us, we'd love to work with you.
So far, any data has been collected? Did you collect any scientific data or some white paper or clinical research that has been done?
So on the topic of BioCrust, we have established that as a scientific study, and it got established in the summer, so we'll be working towards that as a future establishment. The bioengineering we've done, and it's not, like we didn't do it as a scientific thing, we did it as an operational thing to show that it can be done. So that one doesn't have a scientific design. We have some partnerships with, like for example, Yukon U, we have a partnership happening with applying compost extract to bioengineering, and that'll be something that we'll be working on in the next couple of years.
I think one other thing that comes to my mind is when you're using, if you had the data, then using the AI statistical analysis, it would be really interesting to see what impact it could have even before reaching out to different industry or First Nation partner. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I'm really lucky to be backed by incredibly smart scientific minds. I'd spend a lot of time chasing after money instead. So I'll mention that to them.
They have the money power. Don't leave them.
There you go.
Merci, Joe. Thank you.
Merci.
Thanks, Christina, for the presentation. That was awesome. Oliver Kern from Snowline. Nice to meet you in person.
You were wearing a T-shirt yesterday. I was trying to find you.
Yeah. Just a question about the revegetation or the BioCrust on tailings. Have you examined like the chemical characteristics and the limitations there based on pH or certain metals where the BioCrust wouldn't work? And if so, are there like soil amendments that can be used to help start that process of colonization?
So the casino trial, we did a partnership with Trent University, and they studied the chemical properties of the material that they did the trial on, and they were successful in establishing BioCrusts in the lab. So our piece of it was operationalizing that. And then as far as finding out what the amendments are, we're working with other clients, and that's kind of in the proposal stage, so I'm not going to tell you more about it, but on making that advanced further. But I will tell you that we've had really good luck with the bioengineering with amendments in places, like in that rocky area where I showed you all the pictures, we didn't have enough topsoil to like actually grow plants. So we have experimented with bringing in topsoil from just like commercial, like Yukon Grow, to just help us get the islands established. And then the idea is that once the plants are established on the landscape, then they can grow, kind of like Ben's work, where then they create a zone of influence, and then that creates favorable conditions for other plants to grow. And eventually the islands get so big, they connect. It's like the blob.
Time for one question. I saw someone over there. Yeah.
Hi, Christine. Very nice presentation as well. I'm a permafrost guy, so I'm quite interested in retrogressive thaw slumps. And so I was curious, have you also noted the thermal impact of your stabilization? Because it seems that it's mostly a mechanical stabilization, I guess, of your thaw slumps, or the retrogressive thaw. What's the thermal impact to stabilize the permafrost?
That is like a super cool future study, but we have not thought about it so far. Yeah. You're welcome to partner with us. We'd love to do it.
Last one.
On your erosion problem there, how do you maintain, I would imagine velocity is your enemy of water. If water's moving, the erosion usually takes place very quickly and speeds up based on the velocity of the water on the surface. How do you measure that or monitor it? I mean, I would think that would be the key.
So all the systems that we've put into place are to slow the movement of soil and the movement of water and capture sediment as it's moving downstream or down the slope to the stream. And again, this work was operationalizing work, so it wasn't designed to be a scientific study. So what we'll see if we succeed is that we'll have plant establishment, and maybe the folks who are doing the disaster mine monitoring will notice a difference.
So it's by visual, not by data.
At the
true
moment,
data.
yes. But I mean, we'd love to do some stuff that has a more data-oriented focus.
Thank you very much.
Very welcome.